I want to start with the first slide, and I took the liberty of taking a picture from the website of the MCQST. Hope that's okay. I'm going to use it only in this talk, so hope that's fine. So in this talk right now, I don't want to talk about quantum science, but I want to talk about you, the people that do quantum science. And even more specifically, about your brains. Talking about what mental states in your brains are, talking about stressful mental states, about crisis states in your brain. But I'm not going to talk about research today. We also do research at the Max Planck Institute of Psychiatry, but that's not what I want to talk about today. I really want to talk about tips, strategies, things you can do to alleviate stress, to prevent crisis, just to stay mentally healthy. So that stress and crisis can start quite at the beginning of the day when your alarm clock rings. That's the first point when stress can arise in your body and your brain, towards when you actually have to set up an experiment. You have an upcoming deadline. The stress can get larger when you didn't receive a grant you really needed for your research, or even larger if suddenly you can't go to your working space because you can't leave your house because there's a worldwide pandemic. And a few years back, all of us wouldn't have thought that that would be possible, but it was. We were in a state where some of us couldn't leave their houses to go to work because there was a pandemic and no one could leave their homes. So I want to talk about how to handle such situations. And I want to use two models that I use a lot in psychotherapy. As in my everyday work, as mentioned, I do research, but I also mainly work with patients who have depressions, who have burnout, who have the consequences of stress or dealing with the consequences of stress, because pretty much all mental disorders are more or less consequences of stress. So we have models in psychotherapy that we use every day and that are really well proven to work in everyday life. And one of the models I like to talk about is the one of psychological levels or psychological perspectives. If we look at anything happening in our brain, happening from a psychological level, we can look at it from a behavioral level, so things we actually do, actions that we take. We can look at it from a level of thoughts, what am I thinking about, where's my mind? Looking at it from a level of emotions, the feelings, and on a level of bodily perceptions. So this is the one level I want to use today, the one model, and the other model is the one of basic psychological needs. All of you, myself, everyone has needs. You need to sleep, you need to eat, you need to drink. These are physical needs. But we also have psychological needs. And these are the needs that most theories agree to, that every one of us needs to fulfill every day and again and again. And these needs are pleasure, doing pleasurable things, self-worth, being valued as a person, being valued in the things I do every day, sense of control, it's also a basic need, being oriented in the world, knowing, when A happens, then the consequence will be B. When I do this, then this will happen. This is very important for us, for all of us. And last but not least, attachment. Being in touch with each other, being in relationships, not only in the partnerships, but also having friends, having acquaintances, having colleagues at work. So this is all part of our need, how we can fulfill the need of attachment. So in the talk, I would just like to go through these two main models and talk with you about, what can be stressful and what can you do about it to stay mentally healthy and to prevent stress and crisis. Or if you're in a stress and crisis, potentially alleviate it. So let's start with the first model, psychological levels, and let's start with the first level, the level of behaviors. So what can be stressful here? You all know it's quite difficult to put in exercise every day, especially if you have a full schedule, you have a lot to do, you have a deadline coming up, you have a lot of important things to do at work, at research, so there's hardly any time to do exercise. And that can also lead to the fact that you don't have any positive activities because you put all the time that you're awake into fulfilling your deadlines, into fulfilling your tasks. So you don't leave any room to do something positive just for fun. What can be also difficult if you're actually at home office, which is a wonderful thing, as we learned also during the Corona crisis. It's very good that we can do that, but at the same time, it's not easy. If we, usually we get up, we go to work, and that gives us a structure, gives us a reason to get up and go somewhere, get out of the house. And if we don't have that reason, if we don't have that need, it's much more difficult to have a daily routine, to have a daily structure, and that can be challenging. What can be helpful on this level? Plan actually positive activities. So put them in your schedule. And this is a really well-proven intervention in psychotherapy. It's very simple. I know it's not so simple to do, but it's very, very helpful. It actually has the same effects as if you're depressed, and you take antidepressant medication, you get the same effects if you do a positive activity every day. So it's really helpful. It's not so easy to do, but it's helpful. So plan something just for fun. Something that's just, you're all different. You all have different things that are positive for you, that you actually like. So find things that you like in the everyday routine. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can be a small thing, but should be every day. And make it a schedule element in your daily tasks. Try to exercise every day. It's easier said than done. Again, I know. You don't need to go to the gym every day. You don't need to go for a run every day. It's sufficient if you get off the subway one stop earlier and just walk the rest of the way. That's fine. That's enough exercise. But try to get in 20 to 30 minutes every day of moderate exercise. Very healthy, mentally and of course physically as well. And stay in touch. That's very important as well. Can't be underestimated to stay in touch with other people. This can be meaningful, deep relationships where you can really talk about your feelings, with your partner, with your spouse, but also the everyday, hello, how are you? That's helpful as well. In the sum, if you have people you stay in touch with, that's very helpful to stay mentally healthy. So that's the first level of the behavior. Thoughts, second level. If we look at it from that perspective, what can be causing stress? Negative thoughts dominate. It's not so easy to always stay positive. If you have a lot going on at work, things don't work out. Again, deadlines coming up, grants, you didn't get the money from grants, etc. And then we also have wars going on. We had a pandemic going on. We have an environmental crisis going on. So unfortunately, we have plenty of reason for negative thoughts. There's really lots of things that can make us think in a negative way. And of course, for some people that's easier, for other people that's harder, being able to switch off from work when you get home. Again, especially if you have things coming up, if you have problems that you haven't solved yet, you're thinking about them even when you're not at work anymore, when you're at home, and when you're supposed to be doing different things, supposed to be doing things to relax, things for fun, things with your family, with your friends, with your partner. So that can be very stressful. What is helpful? 3 quite different strategies you might have heard already. One is actually just guiding the attention. That's just picking something that captures your attention. That can be an online game, can be watching TV, can be reading a book, can be going outside, do sports, whatever, do a Sudoku, do something that really captures your mind and guides your attention away from the negative thoughts. So this is the first thing that can help, guiding your attention away from the thing that's very negative and look towards something positive. That doesn't mean that, of course, the negative things will still be there. They didn't go away just because you don't look at them. But it gives you room to breathe, it gives you room to relax, and it gives you room to recharge your batteries, and for a certain period of time to think about other things, not only negative things. Mindfulness exercises, I'm sure every one of you knows, which is basically mindfulness can be also guiding attention towards specific things. For instance, guiding your attention towards the present perception of your senses. There's a famous little experiment you can do. If you take a raisin, it's a very good mindfulness exercise. You take a little raisin between your fingers, and you really take your time with that raisin. So you kind of look at it first, visual sense, and but really look at it in detail. So see how it's shaped, what colors, where there's light, where there's shade. Really look at it in a lot of detail and take your time. And then go through all your senses. Put it to your nose, how does it smell? Even to your ears, if you kind of compress it between your fingers, what's the sound that you hear? And of course, also what does it feel like if you have it between your fingers? And in the end, put it in your mouth and really give it some time to taste what that raisin tastes like. And this is a great exercise that you can do every day. You can do it with anything. You can do mindfulness exercises when you brush your teeth, when you eat a soup, when you eat an apple, when you just stand somewhere and look at a tree. You can do it any time. And you don't have to do it an hour every day. Do it a few minutes every day. Or do it just 1 or 2 minutes, but take that 1 or 2 minutes, and it helps you a lot. This is a great basic skill that you can acquire to shift your attention towards certain things. Again, away from negative thoughts towards something else, and just being in the present. Mindfulness exercise can also mean not trying to change something, which is easier said than done, again. So if you have a pain in your body, we instinctively do something to make it go away. And that's not only for pain in the body, also the emotions. If we have anxiety, if we have sadness, anger, instinctively we do something to make it go away. That's the impulse that's in the feelings. And mindfulness is trying to do the opposite. So just perceive it, just perceive what's there without trying to make it go away. It's a great exercise that can help you with negative thoughts. And the last one is the worry chair, which is kind of a different strategy again, but I find it helpful as well. The worry chair is an exercise that says basically you take all your negative thoughts and give those thoughts a certain time and space during your everyday life. So for instance, every day after you come home from work, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you take your time, sit down, and for instance, write down all the negative thoughts that you have. Write everything down, and then put a timer in your mobile phone, and after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you wrote down, put it away, and store it somewhere. And then go away from that chair where you sat down and do something else. So this exercise should help you not actually changing the thoughts. All these exercises that I just told you are actually not about changing the negative thoughts. They're just about dealing with them differently. And this last exercise, the worry chair, is about giving the negative thoughts a specific place and time during the day, and kind of telling the thoughts, telling them, they have a right to be there, but not all day long. It should not be the bed, should not be before you go to bed, should not be before you go to sleep. It should be somewhere that's easily accessible for you, but at the same time, not your favorite chair where you relax. So it should be another chair that's reserved for the worries and for the negative thoughts. So let's move on to the next level. The level of emotions, of the feelings. It's one of my favorite levels as a psychotherapist, because I see every day when I work with my patients, the feelings are really, from my point of view, play a central part. If you want to change behaviors, if you want to change things that you suffer from, if you focus on emotion, that's really, really powerful aspect to look into. What can be causing stress here? Of course, if you perceive straining emotions such as anxiety, worries, frustration, powerlessness, or helplessness. And there are lots of situations. Again, be it a worldwide pandemic or on a much smaller scale, something you can't influence at work in your research. And I know every one of you has a lot of those things, including myself as well. We all have a lot of things that we can't really influence in everyday life. So that makes us feeling powerless or sometimes helplessness. Of course, also conflicts in relationships can be stressful, related to stressful emotions. What can be helpful here? Starting by identifying emotions. It's not always as easy, because most of the time we perceive a bodily state, we perceive a bodily sign that we associate with an emotion, but not all of the time we know, is it now sadness, or is it anger, or is it a bit of both, a mixture of them. So just starting with actually getting to know yourself and getting to know your emotions. How do you perceive anger, sadness, pride, fear, shame, disgust? So what's getting to know yourself, how you perceive these emotions, and being able to name these emotions or identify these emotions can be an important first step. Contextualizing emotions can be helpful if you actually think about where do they come from. Because every emotion that's there, that's my point of view at least, has a reason why it's there. We don't have emotions just like that. They don't come out of nowhere. So every emotion has a reason, every emotion has a cause. Can be something that just happened, can be something someone just told you, can be something you just reminded yourself of, can be something you smelled, you thought of, you heard. But there's always a reason why an emotion is there. So think about the reasons why the emotion is there. The emotion is still going to be there, but you have more control. You're more oriented in that situations because you know, oh, I'm feeling fearful because I just thought of what happens to my children if we don't get this climate crisis, if we don't get a grip on this climate crisis. Or I'm very fearful because I just remembered that the deadline is the day after tomorrow, and I'm still not done. So that can be helpful to get the emotions in context. And then, from my point of view, the most important part, experiencing emotions instead of trying to get rid of them. Again, the impulse of the emotions of the negative, so-called negative or strainful emotions are to get away, to get rid of them. Maybe the most clear one is fear. There's an evolutionary sense. If there's a bear and we are fearful of the bear, the impulse is get away from the reason that's causing the fear to save your life. So that's helpful if you're faced with a bear. But to run away from everything that you're faced with from the deadline is not helpful. If you're faced with a deadline and you're fearful, if you run away from it and do something completely different, it's not going to help. So try to do the opposite. And again, it has to do something with mindfulness. So instead of running away from it, instead of avoiding your emotions, try to just perceive them, to look into the eye of the emotions, to perceive the emotions and just see what they are. Integrating emotions in relationships has to do a lot with the next point. Talk about feelings instead of letting feelings talk. Talk with your partner, with your spouse, with your friends, with your colleagues at work. Talk about your emotions. Talk about, I'm feeling angry because this just happened. I'm fearful, I'm feeling anxious because this and this just happened. That's really, really helpful for yourself and especially for the other ones as well, because they know what's going on with you. They don't have to come up with wild hypotheses, what's going on with you and what kind of emotions you probably have. And talk about your emotions, integrate them. And what I mean by talk about feelings instead of letting feelings talk, and you all know that if we are stressed, if we are angry, we have a loud voice, we are shouting, we're annoyed. But most of the time we don't talk about the fact that we're annoyed. We don't talk about the fact that we're angry. And it's really helpful for everyone to know that. And also talk about needs, what you need, what you wish from your colleague, from your PI, from your boss, from your supervisor, from your PhD student. Talk about what you need for them, from them. Because they don't know. It's the same thing as in relationships, specifically in relationships that lasted for a long time. We always have the idea that our spouse, our partner, they know us for 10 years and more. They have to know what our needs are. They should know what I want. They don't. Sometimes they do. Most of the time they don't. We have to tell them. We have to let them know what we want. Make things much easier for everyone which is involved in that relationship. And as a last thing to mention here, what I find helpful every now and then to realize that many emotions such as sadness and fear, they might be straining, but they are a healthy and normal mental reaction to abnormal circumstances and stressors. So again, if you have a worldwide pandemic and you're feeling helpless, if you're feeling anxious, that's not nice to feel that way. But it's, there's nothing wrong with you because it's perfectly healthy and normal to feel this emotion with regard to such a stressor. The last level from the first model that we're looking at, the level of the bodily perceptions, what can be causing stress here. Disturbances of sleep. Sleep is a very sensible thing. You probably know that. And it goes in both ways. If you're stressed, you don't sleep well. And unfortunately, if you don't sleep well, you're even more stressed. So that's kind of a really annoying vicious circle. So it's really important to deal with your sleep. Tensions can arise in the body. Or you can have a loss of energy on the body level. What is helpful? Sleep hygiene. It's kind of a funny word. Sleep hygiene means doing things that help you sleep well. For instance, make sure the room where you sleep is not too hot. Should be on the cooler side. Make sure you don't take your work into your bed. Bed is for sleeping, not for working. And maybe for other pleasurable activities, but not for working. Can mean also people who are sensitive, don't drink caffeine after 4 p.m. or don't drink alcohol before you go to bed. Because even if we actually think alcohol helps us sleep, it doesn't. It kills our sleep architecture. You notice that the next day when you wake up, that it actually did not help with the sleep. So these are all things for sleep hygiene. Have a ritual, if you know, that makes the transition between your working day, your private, your relaxing day, and the sleep. Read a book or something, or whatever you like. Have a ritual that helps you make the transition from day to night. Relaxation exercises, there are many different ways. The oldest one in psychotherapy, very well proven, progressive muscle relaxation, which basically is nothing else than just really using different groups of muscles and tensioning them and relaxing them again. Doing this a few times in a row and trying to watch out for the difference. Tension doesn't need to be really, really strong. It can be just a slight tension and relaxation, and try to perceive the difference. And so you can train your body again to perceive differences between tension and relaxation. Of course, there are many apps, many good apps. You have to kind of find your thing. Yoga is, of course, a very good thing as well for the people who are into that. Autogenous training can also be helpful with the self-verbalizing, calming instructions. So find something which is for you individually and personally relaxing and calming. Of course, activity and exercise, for those who like sports, even better, is very helpful if you have enough activity and exercise during the day. That also goes together with the sleep. If you're tired, if you don't sleep well and you're tired during the day, try not to sleep during the day, because it takes away the pressure, the sleep pressure at night. So if you sleep during the day because you haven't slept well, you're tired, that can be another vicious circle. Because then again, in the evening when you actually should go to sleep, you lost the sleep pressure that you kind of slept away in the afternoon. So try to stay awake, try to stay active. That helps you to find back in your sleep cycle. Short power naps are okay. Short power naps are okay. Very important question. Yeah. So if you do a short power nap, like 15, 20 minutes, so that's okay. But it shouldn't be the 3-hour afternoon power nap. That's too long. Self-care, such as can be personal hygiene, taking a bath, relaxing, and ask yourself, how many times a day do you actually take your time to take care of yourself? And I don't do it that much. I should do it more. And probably most of you, it's probably the same case. So find some time to take care of yourself, to do something which is just for you, something you like, which is not productive, it's not leading to anything, just for you, just because you like it, just because it relaxes you. Doesn't need to serve any other purpose. Nutrition and management of toxic substances, of course, as well. Nutrition, you all know that, is very important and helpful. And the toxic substances, as pleasurable as they might be in the short, as alcohol and tobacco, they're most of the times not as healthy, unfortunately, in the long run. And as I mentioned, they also mess with our sleep. All right. So this was the first model that I want to talk about, the 4 levels: thoughts, feelings, behavior, and body. What can be causing the stress, and tips what you can do to alleviate stress. And now I'd like to switch to the second model that we use a lot, that I like a lot. It's the model, as I mentioned, of the 4 basic psychological needs. So these are the 4 needs that I mentioned: attachment, control, self-worth, and pleasure. So And again, this is something we need to do every day. It's like eating, sleeping, and drinking. It's not enough if we do that once a week. It's not enough if you drink once a week. You need to do that every day. And it's the same with those basic psychological needs. And the good thing is, we have a very good system that points us if these needs are fulfilled or if they're frustrated. And the system that we have, every one of you has that, are our feelings. Again, that's why I say feelings are really, really helpful if you want to prevent stress and change stressful things. So, if you have the feeling of security, that can be a hint that you just fulfilled your need for attachment. If you're feeling safe, that can be an indicator that your need for control, for orientation, is pretty good right now. It's in a good shape. If you're feeling pride of something, that's of course an indicator that your self-worth is on a good level right now. And if you're feeling joy, your need for pleasure is in good shape. That goes also in the other direction. If you're feeling sad, that can be an indicator that your need for attachment is not fulfilled, but it's frustrated. It can mean that you just lost someone, or you feel alone and isolated. You feel not in touch with other people, or you feel excluded from a group. Sadness can be pointing towards that you need to do something with your need for attachment. Control, of course, if you feel fearful, anxious, that's a sign that you're not in control. You don't have the feeling that you control everything and you're oriented what's going to happen. Self-worth, opposite of pride, is shame. Every one of us knows that, and it's very difficult to perceive shame, because every one of you that has perceived shame knows when we do perceive that emotion, we do everything to get rid of it as soon as possible, because it's very uncomfortable to experience that. And anger can be a hint that your need for pleasure is not fulfilled, but also can be a basic emotion that's a hint that any of the basic needs are not fulfilled, or that someone came too close to you, or someone devalued you. So anger is kind of a polyvalent emotion. Of course, this is not a one-to-one system that goes for everyone. You have all different emotions and you have all different connections to the basic needs. But it can be a first start to get an orientation what need can be connected to what emotion. So let's go through the needs. We start with the first one, attachment. What's causing the stress? If we talk about attachment, if you have a lack of bonding experiences, for instance, at work, but specifically also, again, during home office time, and specifically also in competitive clusters as this one for international employees, because they don't have their friends here, they don't have their family here, so it's even harder to stay in touch, to be connected to people. Of course, we can also have conflicts in relationships, being in a private level, but also on a work level. And loneliness is a feeling, again, that can also be an indicator that the attachment need is not fulfilled very well. What is helpful? Of course, it's kind of obvious, nursing relationships. So make an effort that you stay in touch with other people. Plan and engage in common activities. Talk to each other. It's very helpful. Talk about anything, just talk to each other. Integrate needs and emotions in relationships. I talked about that before. So talk about your needs, talk about what you want, what you wish for, and talk about your emotions. If you're talking about your emotions, it makes every relationship instantaneously stronger and closer. So it's a very powerful tool to make relationships on a stronger level. Create individual, pairwise, and family spaces can also be helpful, especially the ones who have different roles. Parents, parents, you're an individual, but you're also a partner, a spouse, but you're also a parent, a dad, a mom, and that takes a lot of energy. And specifically being a parent, it is difficult to find time for yourself, because usually for most of the parents, the kids always come first. So it can be quite a challenge to find time for yourself, but it's important, it's helpful to stay in shape. Sometimes I use the metaphor of, if you're not feeling well, and of course you want to be there for your kids. And you always say, my kids or my spouse, whoever who's close to me is first. But then sometimes I think of what they tell you on a plane. And the instructions at the beginning when you're on a plane, they say, if there's a decompression going on, the oxygen masks come out, and you have a small child next to you. So, who do you put on the mask first? On yourself or on the child? Not on the child, on yourself. Because when you pass out, then you're gone and the child is gone as well, because you can't help the child. And that metaphor sometimes I think is helpful to kind of being a bit egoistically and think about yourself. Think about ourselves, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can also not look after others. Control. What can be causing stress here? Feelings such as anxiety, worries, frustration, powerlessness, helplessness, anger. For instance, with regard to other future-related worries, such as the environment, but of course also with conflicts regard to conflicts at work, or in Germany specifically with bureaucracy. I'm from Switzerland originally, and I thought, bureaucracy in Switzerland, that was pretty tough. But then I came to Germany, and I was like, okay, there was nothing. That's a whole other level here, bureaucracy. And it can really drive you mad sometimes. At least that's the case for me. And that's probably true for not only for the Max Planck Society, but also, I guess, for other research clusters and research organizations. It's huge organizations, and they have huge bureaucracies, and they can really drive you mad and make you feel very powerlessness. So, what can we do? Again, noticing and contextualizing the emotion that arises. I'm feeling powerlessness because I have to fill in the same form for the third time because I did something wrong or it didn't reach its goal. You're still feeling powerless, but you know why. Normalizing the emotions, that you're feeling powerless or you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling angry. Does not have to do something because there's something wrong with you, but it's because it's normal to feel that way in context to the stress. And that can be relieving. Also helpful, it's kind of the strategy of shifting the attention, carry out activities that you can control. If you have so many things you cannot control, do something you can control. Repair your bicycle, do the dishes, do your favorite hobby that you really like, that you're really good at. Do something you can control. That's even better if it's fun, because that's better than spending all the time on the things that you cannot control. Training of the perception for aspects or situations where I'm in control or feel oriented. Again, that's shifting the attention. Do something that you can control and shifting the attention towards something where you feel oriented, that you can control. shift your attentions towards relationships where you feel in control and oriented, or towards aspects of your life where you have the feeling that you're well oriented. Self-worth is a very central part, I guess, in this community, because that's a highly demanding environment that you are all in, and all of you are all highly motivated, highly competent, and have very high expectations of yourself. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. So that can be tricky for self-worth. Because if you have very high expectations of yourself, you probably know that it's never good enough. Whatever you do, it can always be better. And that's good, because it motivates you to do good research. It motivates you to be successful. That's good. Shame and embarrassment. Oh. I haven't had that question specifically not in English before. I have to think out loud. Shame, embarrassment. I don't know if there's a difference. I don't know. Maybe someone can answer the questions. I don't know. Actually, I would say it's both something. I did something which is in the social context where I'm in, which is not desired, or which is wrong in that context. So I feel shameful, it's against certain values in the context I'm living in. Shame, embarrassment. Anyone come up with a good?
I think embarrassment, there can be an embarrassing situation, you still have fun of it.
That could be, yeah. There was another. Uh-huh. Good point as well. Yeah, and yeah.
I don't know, I personally associate shame with something where you think this is wrong. And you feel bad for having done something on a moral level, whereas embarrassment is more oopsie-daisy, and this shouldn't have happened, and it could be fun.
So it's kind of weaker, it's not as strong as shame. Yeah. Okay. Great. Does it help? So I couldn't answer it better, sorry. But I think these are good approaches, good answers. What can be causing stress if we're looking at self-worth? We have lack of sources, for instance, at work. You have a sense of inferiority. And I just talked about that. We have high expectancy. And I put this versus the importance of praise. So we are all again in an environment where we expect a lot of ourselves, and the environment also expects a lot from us. Our supervisors, our PIs expect a lot from us. If I'm a PhD, I expect a lot of myself. And also, if I'm a PI, I expect a lot of myself. What can be helpful? Focus on activities again or relationships which are sources of self-worth. So gather people around you who say nice things to you. That helps. We need to hear that. But also we need to hear it from outside. So these are basic needs. We all need to get them from the outside, but we also need to get them, or we can get them from the inside. So pat yourself and others on the shoulder. So again, if you're a supervisor, if you're a PI, please pat your students on the shoulder. You can't do that enough. You can't overdo it. You cannot overdo it with telling someone, well done. Do that every day. It cannot be too much. But also say to each other, PhD students among others, say to someone else, "Hey, that was great. It was a great idea. Well done. Congratulations." It's really helpful. And say to yourself, "Well, that was a really good idea of myself. That was really hard work I just did. I really earned something relaxing, something joyful right now, because I really worked hard." Even if you didn't reach the goal, if you put in a few hours of work, you still worked hard, and you deserve something. And we are as humans, we are actually quite simple. If we do something and we reward it, or we reward ourselves, our brain learns, "Ooh, do that more, which was just rewarded." It's really simple. So, and reward can be something that you like, something you enjoy, but can be also something you tell yourself or others. Well done. And that's the other side of the medal, very important. Tolerate your own shortcomings and deficiencies. Every one of us has them. We all have them. The directors of the programs have them. Nobel laureates have them. Everyone has shortcomings. So be aware of them and tolerate them. They're okay. They're part of the whole package. They're part of you. And it's important to have them. It's not, you cannot avoid them. No one can avoid deficiencies and shortcomings. It's just a normal thing for all of us to have. So the last one, pleasure. What can be causing stress? Weariness, indifference, disbalance in duties and pleasures. So lots of duties, no pleasures. What can you do? Plan and carry out pleasurable activities. It's again, it sounds really simple. And I mean, the challenge is not that you all not did come up with this, but the challenge is doing it in your everyday life. Really do something that you like. And also train your ability to enjoy pleasure. So you cannot train to do pleasurable things without doing them, which is kind of obvious. But still, I mean, you need to do them, and you need to pay attention to the things that give you joy. You need to know what gives you joy. Lots of people work so much, they sometimes don't know what is joyful for them, just because they like it, without serving it any other purpose, but just because it's joyful for them. So get to know yourself and try to integrate them in your everyday life. That was it. Where can you get support? I put down some addresses. Of course, there are more. If you're in trouble, if you have a mental crisis, if you need help, there's the German Help for Depressions, which is a very helpful website, I think. There's also the Munich Network for Depressions. There's the Crisis Service Psychiatry. They have a 24-hour phone number where you can call every day and at night as well. Die Psychotherapeutenkammer Bayern, so psychotherapists, they have a pretty good website where you can also look for therapists which are nearby, which are in any language you like. And they all have these first few consultational hours that they have to offer, where you can just go there and find out, is this really a mental crisis I should seek help for? Or is this something I can handle myself? But it can be very good to get just the first feedback of a professional where you're at. Kassenärztliche Vereinigung, so of the psychiatrists and doctors, they also have a phone number that can help you find a therapy slot. And then these slides you can also find on our website. And for MPG employees, there's a few services that you can take advantage of for if you have mental burdens that you can use. So that was it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, thank you very much for these tools and tips that you've given us today. Now the floor is open for questions. If anybody has a question or a comment or a thought that wants us to share with us.
Thank you. Do you have any, I don't know, tips how to incorporate this in the daily life? Because sometimes I feel like I really like doing like some sports. I really like meeting friends, playing some cards. But I get the feeling that if I want to do my hours at work, I want to do my hour of sport, I want to meet the friends, I'm super stressed to like go from work to the sport, be on time, and then I have to leave there early to meet some friends. And I'm again a bit stressed because it's hard to really squeeze all these things into one day. And I suppose I'm not alone in that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's really hard, right? I mean, it's not that you're not doing it because you haven't thought of doing it. You actually did think of doing those things, but you realize it's really stressful to squeeze everything in. And I guess one thing that comes to my mind is it's not possible to squeeze everything in. You should not try to do that. It's okay. You have to cut at certain points. So if you want to do an hour of sport, you have to do an hour less at work.
Yeah, makes sense.
I know it's hard. But you can think of it that way, that if you really if you do the sport and you work an hour less, and if you do that regularly, you're in a much better physical and mental shape, and that makes you much more productive in the time you're actually at work, as opposed to you're all the time at work, do nothing for yourself. You're all the time there, but you're not really productive. So that's maybe a perspective.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thanks for the great talk. And maybe a related question also, how to really establish these healthy routines. It's not only like doing it once or for a week, but also like finding a way that this becomes your new behavioral pattern in a way. Yeah. Because I think it's really easy to fall back into like unhealthy behaviors. So do you have any strategies for that? Like how to commit to these things?
Yeah. Well, one thing is really give them certain slots. Always, if somehow possible, always give them the same time. So be constant and put them in your schedule. So not only put the work things in your schedule, but also what is joyful for you, the things you do for fun, the sport things. Give them an appointment. The other thing is reward yourself. Again, all the activities, the behaviors that we reward ourselves with, that are rewarded, are more easily implemented in an everyday routine. Find people you can do it with. That makes it always easier. If someday you don't feel like doing it, then there's always, but you have to go because your friends are there, or your friend is there and doing it as well. And then I guess so these are a few general things, but it's also about, of course, getting to know yourself. What do you need in order to implement it? And maybe you're someone that helps. So it's helpful for you to implement it if you have the routine that I just talked about. Do it every Tuesday and every Thursday at 7:00 p.m. And that, if you're a person that helps, that's fine. But maybe you're a person that needs the flexibility. So find something that you can do wherever you find time. So I guess, again, it's kind of a mixture of doing a few things that help for a lot of people, and also find your individual profile that helps you to carry on. Oh, a few questions over here.
Hi.
Hi.
So, physical problems like some illness, these are very directly related to psychological problems. If you are ill, then you cannot, maybe you cannot go for a physical activity. Maybe you cannot eat a good food to elevate your mood. So, how to manage such situations?
Find new sources. It's challenging, and you're right. Of course, there's never just physical and never just psychological or mental. There's always a connections. Whenever, of course, you have physical impairments, that has an effect on your abilities to find satisfying sources for your basic needs. Then it's a matter of maybe getting support, getting professional support and trying to find new sources. So if if physical challenge, or you were able to do a physical exercises and now you cannot do them anymore, you need to find new sources, which is something, by the way, the people who are a bit old already and not in their 20s any longer realize that's coming for all of us in life. Anyhow, ones who do lots of sports at 20s, when you're 70, it's not going to work out any longer. So anyway, we have to find new sources, and so it's worth putting the energy into find other things that are joyful for you. Sure.
Yeah, for those who want to squeeze as much as possible, I can recommend to walk and talk, to discuss, because when visitors come, you can go for a walk with them. If you, instead of only sitting over a cup of coffee, go for a walk and discuss. That will give you exercise and won't cost you time.
That's a great idea. Wonderful, thank you. Great idea. Combine two things.
Do you have some tips or strategies how to deal with procrastination?
Well, one thing. It's okay. I try not to. One spot where you can start is to look into the point before you procrastinate. What happens before you do that? At what point do you get before you actually do the procrastinating thing that you're doing? And in most of the time, people procrastinate because we avoid something. So the procrastination is a tool of avoidance. And in most of the time, it's some sort of negative feeling, negative state of mind that we avoid with procrastinating. So for instance, we're faced with a challenge. We're doing something and we can't get any further. We hit a wall, we hit a barrier, and we can't solve the problem. So that can be one of the reasons why we procrastinate. We do something else. And so get to know yourself. Why do you actually do procrastinate? And try to find alternatives to deal with these emotions. To deal with the moment before you procrastinate and, for instance, deal with the feeling when you hit a wall, you can't solve a problem, maybe you feel ashamed. Because then you think, I'm in the wrong place. Now it's everyone knows that I can really not do the things I'm supposed to do. So then it's about finding another way how to deal with those things. Another thing again is about what we said today. If procrastination can be sometimes also a way of actually giving you the pleasures, then a lot of people procrastinate in they play games or watch TV or so they do things which are not the things that they should do, but are more or less pleasurable activities. So if you do have pleasurable activities already in your daily routine, the pressure is a bit lower that you switch off to a pleasurable activity just when you procrastinate. So these are probably 2 things that come to my mind.
Thank you.
Sure.
Behind you?
Yes, there is time for one more question. Over there.
Hey, so I would like to ask something more vague. So, is there a theory, or what is your opinion about why people tend to do the habits that are unhealthy for their mental health, and why is it not the case that it's kind of easy to do things that's good for your mental health?
So I understood. Is there a theory why people do habits that are unhealthy?
Yes.
Absolutely, because they serve a function. For instance, people drink alcohol, unhealthy. But people drink alcohol because it has a very positive short-term effect. And so alcohol is very reliable, has a very positive, for most of the people, very positive effect, and that's why people do it. People tend to not exercise, which is also not healthy, because it's comfortable. It's not as hard as to exercise every day. People tend to procrastinate because it's easier to procrastinate than to face yourself with the problem at hand and face the emotions that are connected with it. So I would say the explanation is the short-term function of the unhealthy habits is the explanation why people do them. Most of them are in the mid or long term unhealthy, but we do it because of the short-term function. But then that's also the key, as again with the procrastination, for change. So if you want to change unhealthy habits, look for the function that the unhealthy habit has for you and try to find another way to achieve that function. But you should always be aware of, you probably won't find another habit that's doing it just as well as the unhealthy habit. But you will probably find habits that kind of approach the effect. Again, with the example of alcohol, people who use alcohol for the short-time positive effects, you won't find anything, or other drugs, you won't find anything that's so quickly and so reliable effective. But you will find other things which are less unhealthy and which give you kind of a similar function.
Okay, then let's thank the speaker once more. I think he will stay around a little bit in our coffee break. I see that there are a lot of more questions, so you can always approach him. And yeah, let's give him a final round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And also the applause to all of you for engaging in this very important topic. Yeah, thank you.